And today we'll be making an all-time classic Thanksgiving favorite, the cornbread dressing. I want to start by introducing you to the ingredients and kind of give you an alternative way to make this traditional dish. So I have some suggested ingredients here. We have a cornbread mix, which is like a pre-made way to make your cornbread, or you can use cornmeal and add the eggs and the buttermilk or milk. We have bell pepper, celery, onion. You'll need eggs, butter, milk. We have stovetop stuffing, this is the reduced sodium, but you can use Pepperidge Farm or store brand. You just need the bread, or the traditional way to make this would be to use stale white bread. If you were like using the old school recipe, you'll need some poultry seasoning, sage, salt, black pepper. You can also add in cream of celery soup or cream of mushroom to kind of act as a binding agent. In the old recipe, you would use eggs. And also, you will need chicken stock. We have a lower sodium version of it, but in the old traditional way, you can always boil your chicken or use the drippings from your turkey to get the stock. So it's really up to you. So this is our cornbread. We're going to put this in a 425-degree oven and bake for 15 to 20 minutes. So now that our cornbread is ready, I'm going to continue by sauteing my bell pepper, celery, and onion. And if you like, you can add a little bit of garlic, but I'm going to stick with the traditional way of using the bell pepper, celery, and onion, kind of finely diced. And I'm using 4 tablespoons of butter to saute it. So we're going to let the veggies kind of saute probably about 15 minutes until they're soft. And once they heat up a little bit, I'll add a little bit of chicken stock, and if you like, you can add some of the chicken bouillon to have it to give more flavor. Just depends on how rich or how seasoned you want your dressing to be. So we've got our vegetables on to saute, and now I'll go ahead and cut the cornbread into cubes. Now that it's ready, good cornbread is the key to good dressing. So now that I've done that, we'll start, once it cools off a little bit, I'll put it over into my mixing bowl and then pour the veggies on top and then build from there. So now our vegetables have definitely started to cook and release some of their liquid. And I'm also going to add a can of reduced sodium chicken stock. Help those be nice and soft so that they won't be too crunchy in the dressing. So put that in, increase the temperature just a little so that they'll start simmering again. We dice these vegetables, but you can also purchase the pre-diced veggies in the freezer section that has the bell pepper, celery, and onion. That's another shortcut that cuts your prep time in making dressing, because it does take a while to do all of this by hand. So now I'm going to start building my dressing first by putting my cubes of cornbread over in my mixing bowl. I'm just using the spatula here to break it up. It's still slightly hot, but it's easier to season when it's still warm, so just keep that in mind. So we've got our cornbread, and I'll go ahead and add stovetop, and like I said, you can use Pepperidge Farm or even white bread. Just crumble it up. That's the traditional way of making it. This is a new spin on an old favorite. So I'll go ahead and mix in we're using stovetop stuffing, lower sodium chicken. So you can see this already in the little cubes, and it has some seasoning. So this is kind of how we start the process. And I'll get the cornbread broken up a little bit more and incorporate the stuffing mix in. So now that we've crumbled our cornbread and incorporated the stuffing mix, I want to go ahead and start adding the wet ingredients, which will be the chicken broth as well as our sauteed vegetables. Since the stuffing mix had some seasoning in it, I'm only going to I'm going to start with a tablespoon of poultry seasoning. And then a teaspoon of sage, and a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of black pepper. Actually, I might do like half a teaspoon of sage. The poultry seasoning has sage and black pepper, so we won't need as much. But if you were not using the stuffing mix, you could add more of the actual spice. But we don't want to overpower this amount of dressings. I think that should be enough. Then I'll add about a teaspoon of salt. And if you were to use the chicken bouillon, you wouldn't need as much salt either, because you have some sodium in your broth. And if you used salted butter, so you don't need that much. So I'll start with maybe not quite a teaspoon of salt, because we've got sodium in everything else. So I want to kind of mix that in. Next, I'll go ahead and add the sauteed vegetables. You can see they're a little bit translucent, they're clear. Let those saute for about 15 minutes. Kind of mix those in. So I've mixed the vegetables. And I'll start with this 32-ounce container of chicken stock. And keep in mind that this is bread, so it will absorb a lot of the liquid, and you don't want your dressing to be dry. So I've added about half of that container, and it's kind of stirred around. Notice that it's already absorbed a lot of the liquid. Now I'll add the rest of it, because it will continue to soak that up. Stir it once again. And at this point, I will add an egg, but if you wanted, you could use this is a large can of cream of chicken. You could use cream of mushroom or even cream of celery soup to kind of be like a binding agent to keep it moist. So I like the texture of this. It's not really too liquidy, but then it's not dry. And then I'll add 2 medium-sized eggs and stir that in. And that will help with the moisture as well. So we'll get that incorporated. Make sure you get all of the egg mixed in. Notice how it changed the texture. I don't know if you can see that. It's nice and rich. I think our ratios are really good for the amount of cornbread and the stuffing mix and the vegetables, which we had like 1 large onion, about 5 stalks of celery, and 1.5 bell peppers. Looks like we've got everything combined. And I know we've added eggs, so be careful if you want to taste it before putting it in your casserole dish. So just taste it before, sample it to make sure it's seasoned, and then add your eggs. And we are going to transfer this to a casserole dish. This looks like a 13 by 9 maybe. Kind of smooth it out. And I have a 375 degree oven. And this needs to bake for maybe an hour, at least until it's golden and it starts to bubble in the middle, but you don't want to overcook it so that it doesn't dry out. So I'm going to pop this in the oven. So this is our finished product, plated for Thanksgiving. Enjoy.